Welcome to my video on the most powerful, best looking, and the most expensive PC I've ever built. A 16-core, 32-thread beast that just laughs at 4K and is capable of editing 8K RED RAW footage. If you like those shots and agree that this PC is absolutely gorgeous, let me know by hitting that like button. I want to give a huge shout out to B&H for making this video possible. I'm going to have all the links in the video description below, and if you guys are going to be ordering parts for a PC build, consider buying them from B&H because they have some really great prices, as well as free 1 to 3 day shipping and no sales tax in most states. Unlike my last few builds, I wasn't trying to hit a low price point, so I went all out. This is the most expensive case I've ever used, and it was definitely worth it. It features tinted tempered glass panels on all sides for a very premium look and comes with 3 RGB fans on the front, but I bought 3 more as exhausts for the top and back to complete the theme. As you can see, the motherboard is RGB as well to match. At the center of this build, we have the brand new AMD Threadripper 1950X, which is the least expensive 16-core and 32-thread CPU by a long shot. Yes, it is pricey, but prior to this, you had to buy a Xeon for almost 3 times the price that is actually much slower due to lower clock speeds. Since AMD launched Ryzen and Threadripper, Intel has been forced to respond, so they released their new i9 processors. Unfortunately for Intel, even their more competitive Intel i9-7900X processors cost the same, but they only have 10 cores, and at stock clocks, our Threadripper is a whopping 37% faster in Cinebench R15. I chose a high-end EVGA gold power supply to provide the massive CPU wattage needed for overclocking and the Arctic Freezer 360 water cooling kit to dissipate the heat from the 325 watts once I overclock that 1950X to a consistent 4 GHz, and it keeps it under 75 Celsius under full load. With both of those CPUs overclocked, Threadripper manages to keep up its impressive lead, even though Intel is much more known for overclocking. Intel will be launching a few new processors at the end of September. Their 18-core CPU will likely have similar performance to this 1950X, even though it has 2 more cores since it features lower clock speeds under full load, but it will be twice the price. I have to pause for a bit to explain how insane these CPU numbers are. 3,342 in Cinebench. My 6-core Mac Pro from a few years ago scored 961, and that was respectable for the time. The most popular CPU for video editing of the last year or so scores 797, and the update to that, the same CPU that's in the fastest iMac available, is at 930. Wow is all that I have to say. Along with that, this PC scores almost 30,000 in Geekbench 4 multi-core and a very respectable 4,588 single-core, so programs that only use a few cores like Lightroom won't suffer. Before we look at video editing performance, let's finish off with the parts. We have 64 GB of RAM, which is a bit overkill unless you work with After Effects, a 1TB 960 EVO SSD with super fast read and write speeds, and to top it all off, the new AMD Vega Frontiere graphics card with 16 GB of HBM2 video memory. This thing looks awesome and has 4096 stream processors, which is AMD's equivalent to CUDA cores. This thing isn't cheap, and it's also not the only graphics card that I use in this build. If you've been watching my videos, you'll know that I don't just try to get a video and put it out as fast as possible, but I like to figure out what works best, regardless if it's a computer, a camera, lenses, or anything else. In Geekbench 4 OpenCL tests, we see a big difference between the RX 580 and the Vega and 1080 Ti GPUs. And in real-world tests, the RX 580 was also slower, proving that it was a bottleneck for the system. With that said, it's not that far off, and if you're on a budget and you're spending most of your money on the CPU, the RX 580 is a very good choice. Just like my last video, if you're editing with Premiere Pro, go for the 1080 Ti. And if you edit with Resolve, go for a Vega. but just not this one. Even though it looks super cool and has 16 gigabytes of video memory, the RX Vega 64 was released shortly after I got my Vega Frontiere, and it's actually just as fast but $300 to $400 less. Now you do only get 8 gigabytes of video memory, but in all of my testing, including RED 8K footage, I never saturated more than 6 gigabytes of video memory, so that shouldn't make a difference. Now let's take a look at my standard suite of tests and see how this computer performs with video editing. Starting off with 4K stabilization, the 16 cores unfortunately don't help as it's just as slow as 4-core CPUs since the utilization is so low. This is a software limitation that has been this way for years. Like always, I'll mention that my 4K iMac can stabilize the same identical clip in just 8 seconds using Final Cut. So Adobe and DaVinci, please step up your software, especially in terms of stabilization. Threadripper took 2.5 minutes to render and export a 5-minute project with 2 LUTs in film grain in Premiere and 1.5 minutes with DaVinci. Moving over to the same project but in 4K, both programs took about 6.5 minutes to render and export, almost real time. Onto the toughest project, 4 4K clips scaled into a 4K timeline, each with 2 LUTs and film grain, and 2 of those clips being reversed. The PC rips through the render and export. This time, Resolve comes in 2 times faster than Premiere and really shows off its efficiency when working on tough projects. So we took a look at a bunch of numbers, which makes the computer seem like it performs really good, but what does this really mean in the real world? Well, if you struggle to edit 4K video with color correction, LUTs, or effects, you'll never have those issues again. This system is extremely smooth in Premiere, even with full resolution 4K, and it can handle up to 4 LUTs and film grain without dropping any frames. This is really good performance for Premiere because even high-end computers struggle when you start adding different effects because of Premiere's inefficient code. Of course, there's no reason to play back in full resolution 4K unless you're using a separate monitor for preview. So if you're just using one monitor, you might as well drop it to 1/2 or 1/4 resolution, which is basically 1080p. In this case, you can stack as much color correction, LUTs, effects, or anything else you want, and the system is going to chew through the 4K and not have any stutters or any sorts of issues. And forget about transcoding your H.264 or other compressed footage because you don't have to. In Resolve 14, the timeline performance is ridiculous. I stacked up to 16 LUTs and film grain onto my 4K H.264 clips from an A7S II, and Threadripper didn't even break a sweat. On top of that, we only had about 35% CPU usage and 65% GPU usage, so that means I could keep on stacking LUTs, effects, animations, anything else that I want, and it's not going to have an issue. I want to point out that this is with the Vega GPU. If you're using the 1080 Ti, it could do the job just as well, but instead of 65% GPU usage, we're at about 80, showing that the Vega graphics card does perform better in Resolve. Now, if you're using the RX 580, it can also handle that 16 LUTs, but the GPU usage is at about 85%, so there's a little bit of headroom, but not that much. So obviously, 4K video editing is a piece of cake for this computer and will rid you of any of your frustrations and make video editing enjoyable once again. This thing will also have no issues with 5K or even 6K video footage. If you're going to be spending this much money on a computer, it should be future-proof, right? Well, to be completely honest, I did not believe that this computer would be able to edit 8K footage because Linus Tech Tips put out a video showing that their $6,800 computer wouldn't edit 8K video from their new RED cameras, and they had to either transcode or buy one of those $7,000 RED Rocket cards.
Core i7 Extreme Edition, $1,600. That'll be $6,800, please. At full 8K on a 10-core Extreme Edition processor with a $5,000 Nvidia Quadro P6000 graphics card, this is what timeline performance looks like. Even straight playback performance is abominable. And we haven't even added any Lumetri color yet either.
Well, I was wrong. This thing will seriously play back 8K Red Raw at full 8K resolution almost perfectly smooth. But since none of us have an 8K monitor, we should be dropping the playback resolution to 1/4, which is 4K, or 1/8, which is about 3K. Yes, playing 8K video is like playing back 4 4K video clips all at the same time. And I'm not talking about edit-friendly codecs like ProRes or Cineform, I'm talking about full over 30 megapixel frames, raw, being debayered and played back at up to 60 frames per second. So how in the world am I able to smoothly edit 8K footage in Resolve and Premiere Pro, even with added color correction and LUTs, but Linus Tech Tips wasn't able to on his much more expensive computer. 2 words, Threadripper. Even though they had 2 Titan XP graphics cards and at one point a $5,000 Nvidia P6000 with a ton of other expensive parts, the biggest bottleneck was their CPU, even though it costs $1,800. My 1950X is overclocked to the same 4 GHz but has an extra 6 cores, which does the trick. And even though I only used 1 graphics card, which was much less expensive, and I only had 32 GB of RAM, which is what I had to put in when I was testing the RED footage, my computer, this Threadripper, can edit 8K video, and their $6,800 plus systems can't. So let me know what you guys think of this crazy computer in the comment section below, and if you know somebody who needs to build a very powerful system that can handle anything that they throw at it, and they have the budget, make sure to share this video with them. If you guys have made it all the way to the end of this video, make sure you guys hit that like button because you obviously enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe and enable notifications so you guys don't miss out on future videos. If you're in need of a new video editing PC but don't have the budget for something like this, check out my other 2 videos that have 2 different price points of computers that can edit 4K video well or really well. This has been Max, and I'll see you in the next video.